Spider-Man. So the 7th episode of The Acolyte is out, and I have got mixed feelings on it, to say the least. We're going to recap this episode, talk about everything that happens, the big reveals, quote unquote, and I'm just going to give my thoughts on everything as it was happening, just because I'm a little confused, disappointed, but also excited, but you know, again, just mixed feelings overall. Before we get started, if you guys could leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, we're on the road to 2,000 subs, and also leave your comments down below of what you thought of this week's episode. I read every single one, and I most likely will respond. Now I'm going to briefly recap the episode, and while I'm doing so, just give my thoughts on what I'm actually seeing on screen and how it made me feel. So for starters, this episode is a total flashback, and I've stated in previous videos that I'm not really a huge fan of flashback episodes, considering we only have one episode left and they choose to do this now. And also taking into consideration that last week we had the big Sith episode where Mae and Osha kind of switch roles. That was really interesting, and now we only have one episode left with that, and that's kind of the main thing that I was drawn to with this series. So hopefully it's good. I'm really hoping this final episode is great, but this flashback episode not only just brought things to a crawl, but it didn't do too much, and we'll get into that. The coolest thing about this episode, in my opinion, is the concept of a vergence of the Force. This is something explained in this episode where a bunch of Force energy comes together to one spot that can possibly create life, which of course is potentially what happened with Osha and Mae. So I like that concept. I think it's really cool how the Jedi are sent here and they want to figure out what this vergence is and if there's anyone else here and why there's such a strong Force reading on this planet. We have Torbin, who desperately wants to leave this planet because they've been there for 7 weeks and he wants to go back to Coruscant, which is apparently a huge deal to him. Sol finds Mae and Osha at the tree that we spotted in the 3rd episode, and he tracks them down to their hideout where all of the witches are. As we saw in the 3rd episode, the Jedi confront the witches and ask to test Osha and Mae for Jedi. If you remember back to episode 3, Torbin was possessed, and we actually get the point of view from Torbin here in this episode. We see what goes on inside of Torbin's head, and Mother Anastasia is kind of convincing Torbin that he really does want to go back home. The Jedi aren't good, and kind of just trying to sway his opinion on things. So far, no twist, nothing big has changed or revealed besides the vergence in the Force, but we continue on and see what actually happens. Before giving the Jedi test to Mae and Osha, Sol tells Master Endara that he would really like Osha to be his Padawan, and he fears for the safety of these children. He develops a really strong emotional connection with Osha, even though he doesn't really have that much time with her yet. But hey, maybe this is the Force speaking to him, similar to what happened with Qui-Gon and Anakin. The Jedi test Mae and Osha in the same way that Anakin was tested in The Phantom Menace, and we know what happens here because Mae does not want to go with the Jedi and Osha does. Now, in a very jarring scene in my opinion, we have the results come back from their Jedi tests. This also includes the blood samples, which turn out to have a very high M count, meaning these girls are very Force sensitive, and Torbin sees this as an excuse or a way to get them off of this planet. If the 2 girls are Force sensitive, they can report back to Coruscant and they can finally leave this place. So Torbin decides, okay, this is my chance. He just leaves the other Jedi and goes to rush to them to kind of get off this planet as fast as he can. If you watch this scene, you know what I'm talking about. It's just very random, and he just starts running away like he's not friends with the Jedi anymore. He's doing his own thing. Meanwhile, back with the witches' coven, we have Mae, who doesn't want to go with the Jedi, talking to her mother, who also doesn't want any of the children to go with the Jedi, so she enrages Mae. She tells Mae to get angry and break stuff, which she just starts breaking things. However, Mother Anastasia wants to do what's right for her children, and I really liked her lines of dialogue here. She wants to give Osha that choice to either stay with the family or go with the Jedi. And the Jedi think that these witches are completely dangerous because they're doing some dark magic, especially with the markings that are on Mae. So then I was like, okay, we're going to get a big reveal of the events that happened in episode 3 were actually not the real events, but they just happen. Mae does start a fire. Mae burns down this whole place, burns down these rocks. She's just angry with Osha. She doesn't want her to leave. There's no big twist here. What we saw in the 3rd episode actually does happen. There's no lies here. But then as soon as she starts the fire, she tries to put it out, and she's like trying to scramble to stop this thing, and obviously it's burning rock, so it's gonna spread super fast. That's a complete joke. But she lights these Jedi texts on fire and starts this massive fire, and then regrets it as soon as she turns it on. So then of course she runs for help. Meanwhile, we have Torbin and Sol confronting Anastasia about taking Mae and Osha to Coruscant to be Jedi. And I kid you not, Mae shows up, her mother and Mae turn into clouds of black smoke, and Sol just decides to kill Anastasia. Why he decides to do this, I have no idea. He kind of just makes a split-second decision to just kill the girl's mom right in front of her. This is a Jedi we're talking about who they've explained multiple times in this series only raise their weapons when they absolutely have to. And I'm also just very confused at the fact that these two characters turn into black smoke. Also, I really just forgot to mention the biggest point of this episode and the most intriguing fact is the possibility that Mae and Osha are actually the same person. They are one conscious split into two separate bodies. They're more than just twins, they're the exact same. Very cool concept, but I was so distracted by what was going on screen that didn't make much sense to me at all that I couldn't really accept that or think about that because they don't really bring it up for the rest of the episode. Mae and Anastasia just turn into black smoke for a second and then Sol kills her mom. Then these witches take control of Kelnaka, the Wookiee Jedi, and they have a big fight. And I did enjoy this fight. I thought this was really fun. I was glad we actually got to see the Wookiee Jedi in action, and Torbin gets absolutely massacred as we see him in the previous episodes that are in the future. Now, in order for Kelnaka to regain his consciousness, Master Andara kills all of these witches? I don't know if they're actually dead at this point, but Master Andara knocks all of these witches out and leaves them all for dead as this place burns down. We get another viewpoint of the bridge scene where Master Sol saves Osha but lets Mae fall to her death, and again, I don't know how she survives this, but she falls a long way down into a fiery pit and he saves Osha. Back on the ship, they have this conversation about what they're going to tell Coruscant about what happened. Because they have Osha, they're bringing her back, and Master Andara just says to tell the truth. But the thing is, that is the truth because there was no big twist. The only thing that really changes is the fact that Sol, for some random reason, kills Osha and Mae's mom. And Master Andara just knocks out all of these people and they all perish in the fire. The fire was real. There was no huge twist really, in my opinion. Osha wakes up and we know what happens from here. And that's the end of the episode. And look, while I don't hate this series and I definitely don't dislike it as much as some of the people on the internet do, this episode did not help the case in my opinion. It makes me very frustrated that we're promised this whole mystery for the first 5-6 episodes, only to find out the events that we were showed in the third episode was the actual truth. Maybe I'm missing something. Let me know down in the comments if there's something I'm not catching on with this episode, because it really made me a little upset to find out that we weren't really going to have a big twist. And the thing that bothers me the most is we have one episode left. We have the mystery Sith character with Osha, we have Sol with Mae. We don't know how this is going to end, and they didn't even explain these characters turning into black smoke. I know they're witches, but we also have the implication that these two girls are the exact same person. They bring it up, they never talk about it again. There is too much for them to wrap up in one more episode. This series has had great concepts. I just think the execution has been quite off. I really enjoyed the 2 episodes before this. I really enjoyed the first 2 episodes. 3, 4, and now 7 have been misses for me. I have to keep it honest with you guys. Am I going to be excited for next week's episode? Yeah, because this was a flashback, and again, like I've said earlier, I don't really love flashbacks, especially when they're at the tail end of the season and they're explaining something that we already knew. The only thing we didn't know is that Sol is kind of a bad guy now. Again, let me know what you thought down in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video. It helps me out more than you could ever know. I'm going to just kind of keep my eye out on what people are saying about this episode, but I recorded this right after watching it so none of the online opinions could sway my opinion. I'm just telling you guys what I thought right after the episode. Also, let me know if I missed anything, any Easter eggs, any story bits that I kind of glossed over. Leave comments because people will read them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all very, very soon.